Good evening, I'm Cynthia Ng. This is AWANI Tonight. PM assures economy to stay open for now, even as COVID cases on the rise. And we take a closer look at stunting. B40 children most impacted. What can be done? That's coming up. The government has no plans to shut down economic sectors despite an increase in the number of COVID-19 cases. Prime Minister Datuk Seri Ismail Sabri Yaakob made the assurance even as Malaysia records a jump in cases fueled by the BA5 variant of Omicron.
Kehidupan seperti biasa, tiada perancangan kerajaan untuk menutup sektor ekonomi dan sebagainya. Jadi kehidupan kita akan lalui seperti biasa, seperti yang ada pada hari ini. Cuma kitalah yang perlu mengambil tindakan untuk melindungi diri sendiri.
He urged Malaysians who have yet to receive their booster shot against COVID-19 to do so immediately. More than 7 million Malaysians have yet to take the booster shot. Sabri said although the booster dose is not mandatory, it is still vital, not only in view of the uptrend in new cases, but also to help fight new variants of the virus. The number of active COVID-19 cases as of today was 35,882, up 27.8% compared to 14 days ago. There has also been a slight increase in average daily COVID-19 deaths being reported. The Jihad Against Inflation Special Task Force vows to take stern action if the leakage and smuggling of subsidized cooking oil to neighboring countries persists. Chairman Tan Sri Anwar Musa says this includes a revamp of the entire supply system.
The revamp is among the measures proposed after investigations found sufficient evidence on subsidized cooking oil being smuggled abroad. This has resulted in towns located near the border getting a constant supply of subsidized cooking oil, sold at between 7 ringgit to 8 ringgit per kilogram. Currently, the Ministry of Domestic Trade and Consumer Affairs has identified an action plan to overcome the shortage of cooking oil. Anwar expects the supply shortage problem at retail level to be resolved in 2 months' time. The government previously lifted subsidies for 2 kg, 3 kg and 5 kg bottled cooking oil, but has continued subsidizing 1 kg packets.
Terengganu police are investigating a travel agency that was suspected to have failed to manage a hajj package. This was the second alleged hajj package scam in the country this season.
Terengganu Commercial Crime Investigation Department Chief Superintendent M. Zamri Mahmud said his department received a report on July 7th from a victim who claimed to have been cheated by the agency. An initial investigation found that a 62-year-old retiree made the first payment of 3,000 ringgit on June 2nd. The full payment of 35,000 ringgit was made into a bank account belonging to the travel agency, taking the total loss to 38,000 ringgit. In a similar case, on July 7, around 380 prospective Hajj pilgrims were stranded at KLIA, believed to have been cheated by a travel agency.
Stunting among Malaysian children increased from 17% in 2015 to 21.8% in 2019. But who exactly is most at risk of suffering from malnutrition in their early years? Dr. C. Kui Cheng, head of the Pediatrics Department in Hospital Sungai Buloh, gives his insights.
It cuts across all income groups, whether you are in the B40 group, M40 group, or so on. All of us are affected by stunting, and also your occupation, whether the mother is a housewife, works in the private sector, public sector, you are also affected by stunting. Your family, educational level, states, urban to rural ratio divides. So it's a very ubiquitous problem that is found all over all divides of life. And to actually pinpoint it, most of the references look at the maternal and child diet, and also look at the poor community, the B40s, minorities, especially the Orang Asli communities. And we also found during the COVID pandemic, the marginalized communities, especially refugees, unsheltered children and mothers, and these are the ones that actually are at the very highest risk of being exposed to stunting. besides the already underlying communities which I've said just now. So, so it's a very wide and multi-sectoral, what do you call it, proliferation of this stunting problem.
The government aims to reduce the prevalence of stunting among Malaysian children to at least 8% by 2030. While Putrajaya has taken note of the issue, Dr. C shares what else is needed to achieve this target.
And the three principles regarding the management of stunting in the country, like I said, it's all of society, all of country approach. You cannot just expect the medical profession or the primary healthcare providers to actually just play their part without the participation of the society as a whole. First, you need to address the underlying causes, which I've said just now, especially food security. I think that's one of the big, issues that people are talking nowadays, especially with the rise in prices since the 1st of July. We are having less on our table now with the amount of take-home salary that we have, for all families. I'm sure most of the vulnerable groups that we have mentioned just now will be heavily impacted by this rise of inflation and rise of food prices. Like I said, it's a very sensitive index in terms of food security in our country.
On top of this, there should be more focus on the 1,000-day period, which refers to a child's life from the day they are conceived until they have reached 2 years of age.
Good to note that, all children across the world actually has the same growth trajectory, whether you are Malaysian, you are born in America, you're born in Europe. So the first 5 years of life, you actually have the same growth potential. So it is only by the influences of nutrition, environment, and healthcare facilities that these things are actually sometimes affected to a certain degree. So actually modifying a lot of these concepts along the way does actually help to prevent stunting in children.
We will go for a quick break. Stay with us.
Cabaran membuatkan kita.
Let me go in now, sir.
Kemahuan mampu mengatasi segala halangan.
पागलपन की हद से ना गुजरे वो प्यारी कैसे?
Pertahankan apa yang anda percaya dan capai sesuatu yang luar biasa. Segala yang baharu di Ultrabox. Stream sekarang.
Welcome back. Preparations are underway for the funeral of former Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, who was shot dead on Friday by a gunman. Outside his political party's headquarters in Tokyo, people laid flowers and paid respects to Japan's longest-serving Prime Minister. A wake for the 67-year-old former leader is held this evening at a large Buddhist temple in central Tokyo, followed by a private funeral on Tuesday at the same venue. Local media reports said a public memorial and other ceremonies would be held at a later date, including in Abe's constituency in Yamaguchi Prefecture. Abe was in the city of Nara to back his party's local candidate when he was killed by Tetsuya Yamagami, who fired 2 shots from a homemade shotgun. Yamagami has since told police he targeted Abe because he believed the politician was linked to a religious group he blamed for his mother's financial ruin. The Liberal Democratic Party's sweeping victory in Japan's upper house elections presents the government with a historic opportunity to revise the country's pacifist constitution. It has been a long-cherished goal of former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe to amend the 1947 constitution. Prime Minister Fumio Kishida pledged to continue Abe's work, and with a clear majority, the LDP may now have enough votes to move ahead with constitutional changes in parliament. Abe and his predecessors, including his grandfather, former Prime Minister Nobusuke Kishi, had sought to amend the US-drafted constitution, seen as a humiliation imposed on Japan following its World War II defeat. It has been called the pacifist constitution because of Article 9's renunciation of war, limiting Japan's rights to have a fully functional defense force, which includes offensive military capabilities. Any proposed revision needs to be approved by a two-thirds majority in Parliament before the proposal can be put to a national referendum.
Sri Lanka President Gotabaya Rajapaksa confirms he will be resigning, according to the Prime Minister's office. This comes 2 days after thousands of protesters stormed the official residence of both leaders in the wake of an economic crisis. The Speaker of Parliament earlier said that the President would resign on July 13th. However, there has been no direct word from Rajapaksa on his plans, and his current whereabouts are unknown. Under Sri Lanka's constitution, his resignation can only be formally accepted when he resigns by letter to the Parliament Speaker, which has yet to happen. Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe has also said he would step down to allow an all-party interim government to take over. Demonstrators are still occupying the two leaders' residences and are refusing to leave until they both quit office. A wildfire in the Yosemite National Park in California had doubled in size in the past 24 hours, threatening the largest grove of giant sequoia trees. Firefighters are working to protect the iconic redwood trees, the oldest and largest in the world.
The blaze, which began on July 7th, is near the grove of about 500 mature sequoias. For now, none of them have been destroyed. Nearly 1,600 campers and residents have evacuated the area, while thick smoke had worsened the air quality in the region. The cause of the blaze, called the Washburn Fire, is still under investigation. Officials say more than 35,000 wildfires have burned across the U.S. this year, triggered by warmer temperatures and more extreme drought conditions caused by climate change.
The world's population is expected to reach 8 billion on November 15th, according to a forecast by the United Nations. India, meanwhile, is likely to surpass its neighbor China as the world's most populous country in the coming year.
According to the report, the global population is growing at its slowest rate since 1950, having fallen under 1% in 2020. The recent projections by the UN suggest that the world's population could grow to around 8.5 billion in 2030 and 9.7 billion in 2050. It is projected to reach a peak of around 10.4 billion people during the 2080s and to remain at that level until year 2100. More than half of the projected increase in global population up to 2050 will be concentrated in just 8 countries, namely Congo, Egypt, Ethiopia, India, Nigeria, Pakistan, the Philippines and Tanzania.
Countries across the globe are reporting a fresh wave of infections driven by the fast-spreading Omicron variant. In Macau, casinos were shut for the first time in more than 2 years as authorities struggle to contain the worst COVID-19 outbreak in the city.
More than 30 casinos and other businesses will shut for 1 week, while people were ordered to stay at home apart from short trips for essential services. Casinos were last shut in Macau in February 2020 for 15 days. The gambling hub has recorded around 1,500 COVID-19 cases since mid-June. Around 19,000 people are in mandatory quarantine, and all residents will be required to take part in mass testing 4 times this week, along with rapid antigen tests daily. Over in Shanghai, the city is bracing for another mass testing campaign after detecting the BA.5 Omicron subvariant. Daily counts of local infections in Shanghai increased to several dozen since July 5th, up from single digits earlier in the month, triggering fears of another lockdown. China continues to abide by its zero-COVID policy of stamping out all outbreaks with tight restrictions.
That is all we have for you on AWANI Tonight. I'm Cynthia Ng. Thank you for watching.